Okay, but just for the counter argument's sake, in 2022, Citadel became the most successful hedge fund ever in terms of the dollar amount of returns, US dollar based returns that they've made for their limited partners, passing Bridgewater Associates. The founder, Ken Griffin, made about $4 billion for himself, according to Bloomberg's calculations. And he attributes a lot of their success to the fact that 98% plus of his workforce is in the office. You know, what do you say to some of the skeptics out there who say we've got to be in the office? You know, is there some validity to that, or do you think the remote thing will stay?
Well, there is. I mean, obviously, you know, there is a lot of purpose. There's a lot of reasons to be in the office. I actually think that more people should be in the office. However, it's definitely a fact that workers tend to like the hybrid to online type. It's easier to go and balance your life a little bit. It's kind of nice to work in your pajamas. Can't argue with that. You know, there is a lot of convenience, and even if I actually agree that from a business perspective, I would not really want people at home all the time, but it probably would affect productivity, especially if you're a very high intensity, high pace, you know, a very kind of high speed type of industry. Or, you know, I'm sorry, you can't be at work from home as an airline pilot. You can't work from home as a ship captain. There's just some jobs you can't do that from. You work it from home cop is not happening. You know, it's just, so there's some things like this that you can't do it anyway. But also, so there's always going to be those people that need to work in person, but there's some jobs where it's definitely easier. Like software engineering is something very easy to do remote. You know, if you're but you know, I would definitely imagine, especially hedge funds, I don't think that's a good thing to do remote. Especially with hedge funds, there's a lot of proprietary information. There's a lot of sort of secrecy and security around the strategies, the tactics, the sort of what the investments are. And obviously, the more stuff that's done remote is also a higher chance of security breaches, because it's more data that's transferred across the internet instead of me talking to somebody in person in the office. Way easier to keep things kind of on the down low there. Way less likely to have leaks of any sort like this, because you don't want somebody to know your strategy before you use it and then do something like a short squeeze if they're your competitor. Like the GameStop thing happening over and over again would not be fun for most of these hedge funds, because there's plenty of people that want to do that sort of thing to them. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's definitely validity. I'm not actually on the side of people necessarily working from home. I just say that enough industries have found out that it's possible, and that it will definitely drastically affect the real estate market, because a lot of people will not put up with the downsides of living in a city, because there's a lot of them. It costs more, there's higher rates of crime, you know, it's not, the schools aren't as good if you have a family, you know, now you have to pay for private school or whatever. There's a lot of costs associated with living in urban areas that are financial, but also kind of like lifestyle compromises. And if we're comparing, and that will make, that in my opinion will make a lot of these overinflated housing prices fall. I also think a lot of them are going to fall in general, just because when people aren't going to be able to afford them, I mean, eventually I don't really know how they're going to even stay full. And I think a lot of them will get torn down for apartments over time, because there's still gonna be more people, and less people that can afford to live in the houses, especially from our generation, because the house pricing have outpaced the generic inflation by a substantial margin.